podcast. After an illness-induced, elongated absence, we're back, baby! My name is Stuart Bothwell, and I'm thankfully joined by a much healthier Darren Butter. How's it going, Darren?
I'm good.
I'm glad to hear it. There's a little touch and go there for a while. You're AWOL. Yeah. We're kind of a little bit concerned for your health and well-being, but you've managed to pull through the other side, and you still have all your limbs and internal organs intact.
Well, limbs is, it's still attached to me. It's not working quite as well as it probably could be, but that's all right.
Yeah, you can workshop that.
Walking around, you can tear a tendon in your foot, so...
Yeah, that's why I choose to stay in my bed as long as possible. And if I am ever going to the kitchen or something, I'll use a wheelchair.
Yeah, like Bran.
Yeah. So, the NFL draft is in the rearview mirror, and we're already starting to hear tales of how amazing some rookies are doing in their new surroundings. Of course, it's just superlatives everywhere. You know, just DK Metcalf absolutely lighting things up around Seattle, and just as well because it seems that we may, well, no longer be hearing from Doug Baldwin, certainly not in a Seattle uniform, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But yeah, so this means that we're generally getting into the pretty quiet part of the off-season. So with just likely a few more key vets to be signed now that the compensatory pick time frame has been and gone. So at Fourth and Forever, what this means for us is that we can get into doing what we really want to do, which is just chat some shit about football, eh?
Yeah, thank God.
We were really beginning to lose it a bit looking at all these statistics and all these college players. It was an awful lot of time and effort, eh?
Yeah, which is fine, but it is all hyperbole and guessing. I think
yeah,
there's some players
so much
that
guesswork.
are going to be lights out, and we can see that already. And there's others that we've spent an hour talking about that might never play a snap or might only last 6 games. So.
Yeah, that's it. It's been mentioned in a bunch of articles recently, and it gets said every year that you just, no matter how much you dive deep and analyze a player's college tape, sometimes you just can't put a pinpoint on how they're going to play in the NFL, and it means absolutely nothing until they start taking snaps, until they start throwing passes, until they start getting in the backfield. You just don't know what you're getting.
Yeah. It's. Mm-hmm. I'm glad that we can finally get down to it and talk about football, and these boys just have to prove it so we can talk about them on a weekly basis when September comes.
Yeah, looking forward to it. But yeah, that's it. September still seems so far away. But I'm sure that we can find something to talk about every now and again.
Yeah, well, some of these NFL players can make it pretty easy. So
oh, yeah. They just put it on a plate for us sometimes.
So we'll see.
Yeah, so I reckon over the course of the next few months, we'll come at everyone with a bit of a few top 10 lists and some general ideas about what we foresee for this coming season. So that will include some way too early predictions. So we'll get into some of those today, but before that, we're going to discuss some of the league's most important non-QBs. So then we will get into some way too early predictions before we just have a little, chat, beat about the bush, chew the fat on a few league rumblings. So let's just dive right in, shall we? So what we're thinking about the most important non-QBs in the NFL. Obviously, quarterback is probably the most important position in all of team sports. I think it would be very hard for people to argue otherwise, because he's just obviously the engine room, the brain, the conductor of everything that has to go through the offensive side of the ball has to go through the quarterback. Of course, you could argue that the center is really important because someone has to snap in the ball, but that's we're overlooking that part.
And if it goes wrong with the first play of the Super Bowl, then you don't usually recover.
Oh, how you just manufacture this? There's always something that has to bring it back to a Broncos failure. Just for the listeners, I'm just going to say that, okay, so recently Doug Baldwin has just been released from the Seattle Seahawks, and Darren's like, oh, does that mean that, like, I mean, I know you won't like it, but could we talk about that Super Bowl where the Broncos got absolutely mauled by the Seahawks? And yeah, I'm just not having it.
Cam Chancellor's gone too.
Yes, he has, and I guess we'll get into talking about them towards the end of the show today. So so we're going to go most important non-QBs. We're going to kind of break it down into most important offensive non-QBs, and then also do the defensive side of the ball as well. So I don't know, Darren, do you want to kick us off with offense?
Yeah, well, I was looking at this as more influential to the kind of the layout of the league and the way the games are going to go, rather than, maybe someone's true skills. But if we just go off straight true skills, I think that the highest rated player and probably the most influential to a team's success is probably DeAndre Hopkins.
Absolutely, he's
Texans,
atop my list.
He was third in PFF rating, this top 101 players. So yeah, he can do things that make Deshaun Watson and that offensive line look better than it is, and he will affect that AFC South League more individually than I don't think any other player in that division. So yeah, he's definitely probably the top of my list for like offensive skill players that impact the game.
Oh yeah, I absolutely had him at the top of my list. Like, he's just been so consistently freakish since he's entered the league. It was said that, like, he catches everything. He had not a single drop last season, which is just unheard of.
It's ridiculous, sir.
It shouldn't be possible. So he still puts up freakish numbers whether he's catching passes from Deshaun Watson, Brock Osweiler,
Savage.
Captain Caveman, some kid you saw on the playground the other day. It doesn't matter. Hopkins is just so legit that he will find a way to put up a 1,500-yard, 12-touchdown season, and I earn you on his own probably like 3 or 4 wins.
Well, the Texans won 7 games in a row. 8 games in a row last season, and they weren't very good. And yes, the AFC South was competitive at the lower end of the kind of the talent level for some of the divisions, but yeah, to pretty much drag your team to an 8-game winning streak. He just impacts the game over odds compared to other players, and they'll just have to hope for his health, because I don't think they've added players, but they haven't really added anyone that's going to help him. So or share the load with him. So they're kind of going for him to get nearly 2,000 all-purpose yards again. I think that's going to be their whole offensive tactic, from what I can see.
Yeah. I think to me it's unquestionable. Like his actual the influence that he has on games cannot be underestimated. Like, he will. He will stretch a defense. He's got the speed to burn you. He can go up and leap higher than anyone else. He's got the craziest hair in the league as well. He's damn good.
What do you think his trade value would be?
Trade value? Oh, in terms of picks, like draft picks. I would say you'd be looking at something similar to the Khalil Mack trade. To be honest, yeah. A couple of first rounders and then some. He is,
player.
It has to be a very good player as well. You can't just put that It's almost unquantifiable for me because he is.
He's not going to go.
He's absolutely untradeable, and a lot of people will say no player is untradeable. Even though they may look it. But he is just such a key part to that offense that if you were to take him out, I would see them being potentially the worst team in the NFL. Yeah,
definitely last year. I don't know. If he got 1,500 receiving yards last season, then it's probably nearly half of what Deshaun Watson actually got.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's by far to me in terms of that kind of position. And I never realised that they're both Clemson.
Yeah.
So he had 4,100 yards last season, and over 1,500 were DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah. So nearly half of the offense went through DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
Essentially, because they didn't have much of a run game, to be fair. Okay, so I'll come back at you with now. I've got a couple of different ways I can go here. I think I don't want to dwell too much on the wide receivers because there are some that have a great impact. So I'll put him out there though. I think Julio Jones he's the prototype wide receiver. He's huge. He's so fast. He has amazing hands. He's durable. He draws all sorts of coverage. He'll get double teams, he'll get triple teams. People complain about his red zone production, but that's just because he's usually being so marked out of the game. But that allows other people to contribute. And so you can't just look at someone's contribution purely by the stats that they put up. And of course, Julio Jones's stats are still absolutely out of this world. I think he's consistently up there in the top 3 in terms of receiving yards every season that he plays, as long as he's healthy. And he allows for the other players in his team to become very successful. And Atlanta have recognized this, and then they've said, well, what we're going to do is invest heavily in our second and third, fourth wide receivers so that there's so much attention going on Julio, but we also have other great weapons that can more consistently come down with the ball when they have to do something with it. Yeah,
definitely. So Calvin Ridley got his chance to kind of shine with the one-on-one coverage. It's probably the first time he'd been one-on-one coveraged since he joined Alabama.
Yeah.
So he's coming into the NFL and he's probably finding it a bit easier than what it was in college for him because he was the number one. And now he's got Sanu and Jones playing 1 and 2, and it just makes it so much easier for Calvin Ridley and Sanu to get free and score those red zone touchdowns when Julio Jones is being double teamed. So
yeah,
but I think would say Julio Jones himself probably would say that he could do more in the red zone from getting open. I know he was saying last season he got that finally got a red zone touchdown, and he was like, "Oh, I should have got a couple more this season." But that's just that winning mentality. Yeah, it's like
he holds himself to a very high standard, of course, and
if he got the 50-yard bomb to get them into the red zone, then he's done his job for the drive. He just has to, run his route. And assuming that most of the stuff that happens with Atlanta in terms of game planning is that he's going to be double teamed, so he knows it.
Yeah, exactly. They play what defenses give them, and I can see the Falcons really having a bounce back year. That offensive line, they're really investing heavily into it. Of course, new offensive linemen coming into the league don't always land straight away, but getting Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry to help shore up that offensive line, two first round picks that they've invested there. Then you got Alex Mack at center, you got Jake Matthews is out at left tackle. If that comes together, look at your offensive weapons. Of course, you got Matt Ryan back there. Devonta Freeman should hopefully be back and be fit, and then therefore he will still continue to contribute. Austin Hooper should be back, looking good. Then you got Mo Sanu, Calvin Ridley, and Julio. That's quite scary offense.
It is, yeah. But they had Sarkisian last season?
Yeah, Steve Sarkisian.
It was very vanilla, very beige kind of offense, and they weren't really doing much. So hopefully they can get a bit more scheme, get the game planning a bit more exciting, and get players free so they can put up numbers. Because
Yeah, well, now they'll have offensive coordinator Dirk Cutter, who was the I don't know if I can say mastermind behind Tampa
Magic.
Bay team from last season. Tampa were so bad on defense, but you saw how explosive potentially they could be on offense. So if he can implement that into a much better offense in Atlanta, then we could see some real fireworks here.
Yeah, and I think the fans will want that. They're getting beaten by the soccer at the moment in terms of crowds. So
Yeah.
I think the Atlanta faithful are using their money and their time to show that they want to be entertained. So
Yeah, and rightly so. You got to get them back to the Super Bowl and give them a chance.
and run the ball.
Yes. Oh my God. Don't take a sack to take you out field goal range. Anyway, we're not going back and dwelling on that. What have you got for us next? Who else have you got?
Okay, to do the kind of slam dunk ones, I'd say if I quickly touch on the wide receivers I've got Cooper Kupp and Thielen in the NFC. And then,
Two interesting choices there. I'd say Thielen in particular is he makes a lot of sense these days. Cooper Kupp is just one which would be under the radar a lot, but you saw how drastically that offense changed when he was out there.
It's more the influence that they have in the team and on results, and they weren't able to get away from teams the way they were because they just didn't have the same amount of weapons getting free, so they weren't pulling away. They weren't winning games by 40 points anymore, and a lot of that has to do with Cooper Kupp being such a weapon. Adam Thielen, just because he's solid. He's just such a solid wide out.
Yeah, he's a fantastic all-rounder. Great hands, great route runner. He's got speed to burn you. He's got the right attitude. Yeah, Thielen's a special up-and-coming player.
Yeah, and
in fact, I'll go past up-and-coming. He's there. He's arrived.
Yeah, and it's, being from Minnesota, going to Minnesota, playing for Minnesota University, he is the heart and soul of that team now, I think, and they have to hopefully keep him fit because he does do a lot for the Vikings. The other two wideouts have got Devontae Adams, the Packers. He just needs to be himself. He needs to be brilliant because they still don't have that many weapons.
Yeah, there's no one else behind him, really. Although they will say that they love Marquez Valdes-Scantling and a few other guys there. Geronimo Allison come back and be healthy this season. Hopefully that'll all work out for them.
Yeah, they have to. But then the other one on the other side of that is Randall Cobb going to the Cowboys. Influence-wise, he needs to be good. Otherwise, the Cowboys are going to be more of the same, really. So he's their big offensive pickup, unfortunately, for Cowboys fans.
So we need to come back and we need to talk about an article that Bucky Brooks wrote recently about Dak Prescott deserving to be one of the next $30 million season contracts. We can discuss that towards the end because I have all sorts of opinions on that. He needs to be good because Cooper can't do it on his own. Now, one person you've left out of that list is Antonio Brown. So now I'm sure we're not sure how he's going to fit in this offense in Oakland, but there's zero doubting his impact over the last few years. Statistically, just the best there is. But then also there's
is he going to really influence the NFL? You think of how much quarterbacks influence the NFL. Do you think him at the Raiders is going to make much difference to the overall standings in the league?
I think it could, but that will depend on how the offensive line of the Raiders manages to keep Derek Carr clean. If you can give Derek Carr a little bit of time to get the ball out to Antonio Brown, I could still see him putting up Antonio Brown numbers. I don't think it's going to be as big as that. I still see him you'll still get something like 1,300 yards though, and maybe like 9 or 10 touchdowns, which isn't up there with like your 1,800 yard seasons or anything like that. But he'll still put them up, and he will get the Raiders. Obviously, it'll be hard to tell whether it's just his influence because the Raiders have brought in so much new blood, especially through the draft. It'll be hard to see it because as soon as you bring in another player, that's someone else who can take away coverage or make the defense second guess, which can buy the weapon, the person that we're talking about, some more time. So, yeah, there's influence all over the place.
Yeah, I just want to see it. I'm not ready to say he's going to be one of the most impactful non-QB players until he does it for the Raiders. I think it's just...
I've got an asterisk next to his name.
Yeah. Anyway, if I move on from wide receivers, the next obvious one for me is Alvin Kamara. At New Orleans. He just what he provides in terms of game plan and scoring is just outrageous. So as an influence on a game, he definitely has shown over the last 2 seasons that he can get the Saints into position to win the Super Bowl. So
yes,
he's definitely there, and he doesn't seem to have any real injury concerns. He doesn't really take time off the field, so yeah, he's, in my opinion, got a very high influence rating on a team, and I don't really stand with the whole. This is the thing that gets me about when you talk about like draft and everything, and about any running back can do something, you shouldn't pay them or draft them, and then as soon as the season starts, everyone's like, oh, I can't wait to see Alvin Kamara and that play. I'll note I've left Gurley off this because he hasn't done anything for about 3 months.
Yeah.
Well, about 6 months is the last time I saw him have a good game. So he's one that's kind of, same as Antonio Brown, kind of come off it, needs to show it again for me.
Yeah, now I would say that Kamara definitely earns a spot on this list, but the whole conundrum with running back value is something which gets discussed to no end these days, especially because we listen to a lot of PFF and what we listen to them. We take that on board quite a lot. So Alvin Kamara, fantastic contributor on a really strong offense in New Orleans. He's got all these other weapons around him, and so that makes him more valuable. And then you go to New York and you see someone like Saquon Barkley, who has been nothing short of phenomenal as a rookie. He came in, he did absolutely everything. He's broken all sorts of records, but the Giants still sucked because he wasn't on what was like an actual good offense. He was the sole workhorse there, but he was like always having to do it in situations where they were just still going to end up losing games. So he couldn't really have as much influence on it as he would like. Because he just simply couldn't be used. It's
just not as surgical, if you're going to be a high-level surgeon or an artist, you have to have the tools to be precise and get those wins. And Barkley is, as a talent level, is there, but we don't know where he's at in terms of big game situations because most of his runs he was taking from 5 yards out, or long distance yardage. Whereas you can see from like Alvin Kamara that he'll swing out and he'll beat a player he shouldn't beat. He'll spin round someone and get a couple yards over the marker every single time. He's like the Julian Edelman of running backs.
Yeah.
So
just somehow he always gets those extra yards.
Yeah, and Barkley might be able to do that too, but most of his big plays came from unexpectedly being given the ball on 3 and 8 and beating a few players and getting to like a 30-yard run, which is impressive and definitely influential if the team can keep up with it, but it doesn't show as much. And you're right, and it's not him, but I think in terms of influencing high-level, NFL games and the overall winners next year, I just think Alvin Kamara he is influential because he is showing it in playoff games. Yeah. And he's torching the Falcons and he's torching the Panthers.
Yeah, he's doing it week in, week out. Often against very good defenses as well, and he'll do it in a variety of ways. So he'll be involved as a running back, he'll be involved in the passing game, he can actually play out of the slot, you can put him out all the way wide if you want to, just anything. He always has to be accounted for on the field.
Yeah. But in saying that, he is the only running back I've got on this list, so I have taken that into account. But I just think, he's on the level above at the moment in terms of what he does in games.
Would you have an asterisk next to Lev Bell?
Don't know what he is.
We all know what he could do, but can he do it again? And can he do it in another city behind a different offensive line? We don't know.
Yeah, if we're saying this is a far too early podcast, then I'm holding out on Lev Bell. But after 3 games, if he's not suspended, we'll probably be talking about him as the difference maker for that Jets team. So, look, if he can put up 150 all-purpose yards against the Pats and win Jets a game in at home and away against the Pats, then I'll be putting him at the top of my list, I'll be honest. But
oh, hell yes.
he's going to need to show it. He hasn't shown it for a while. And that's not necessarily his fault. But, he's not there at the moment for me.
Yeah, whilst we're on running backs, so we're saying Lev Bell, he's a maybe unknown quantity again after taking a year out and moving cities. I would say that one to watch in the running back stakes. No, of course, I am saying that the value of running back is often dictated by how good the offense is. So if offenses take leaps, then the running back's value goes up exponentially, because you can be leading in a game, and then that allows you to get even more stuff to grind out wins just through the running back. Now, I'm not just being a homer here, but when he broke out and started to get more carries, he was incredibly effective. I think Philip Lindsay from the Denver Broncos, he could be an excellent complement to an improved offense, and he could be up there with the top running backs in the league. You see the way in which he runs, it's with more determination than anyone I've seen. For a smaller guy, he just keeps his legs churning. He is determined to get every single yard that he can get. And if he has to do it through juking people, if he has to do it through a spin move, if he has to just try and run through someone who's 70 pounds heavier than him, he doesn't care. He's going to go for it. But if he stays healthy and the Broncos don't fall behind far too often, which might still happen, he could be a sneaky contender to lead the NFL in rushing. And I mean that sincerely.
I think it's unfortunate for him the way it's kind of worked out, that in some ways that he goes into this season making $500,000 on the cap. And he is probably one of the best running backs in the AFC now. And
yes,
this is where I think it kind of needs to change a bit. As soon as he made that Pro Bowl, he should have got some form of salary compensation for being a Pro Bowl player. It should there should be some way to change it, yeah. Because he's a 7th round pick, and
no, he was undrafted.
Undrafted, yeah. So I get mixed up with him and James Conner.
Yeah.
Now, Lindsay is far more likely to earn money at the Broncos than Conner is at the Steelers. So, he will, I think, get his value probably before his contract ends. Because he's not allowed to renegotiate it until next season. But it's tough. It's tough to be that influential, and it makes the Broncos need to take advantage over the next 2 years of that. That he is only on $500,000, and he is going to play 3 out of 3 downs pretty much.
The value of running back contracts though has generally plummeted around the league, aside from David Johnson, Todd Gurley, and Lev Bell, of course. You could still get him as a big contributor, but on a lesser contract. But I guess we'll just see how that goes. So, shall we move onwards?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've kind of got a bit of a wide-ranging one here, because I think that these guys deserve a lot more love than they get. But I'll start off with one person who is of great value to his team, Tyron Smith, left tackle at the Dallas Cowboys. So he's a gargantuan human being charged with protecting a mediocre quarterback and thus making him appear to some like a great QB in Dak Prescott. And he's blocking for Ezekiel Elliott and making sure that he's up there as being one of the top running backs in the league. Obviously, he is on a fantastic offensive line in Dallas. I don't think anyone would question that. But being the left tackle, that's the guy who's got the quarterback's back the most. That's the one who's stopping him from being blindsided the majority of the time. And I think that Tyron Smith does it probably better than anyone else in the league. But I would also like to put a number of other tackles in the same position because I believe that they all deserve an equal amount of credit. So I'm going to give it to them. So Trent Williams in Washington, he is consensus excellent left tackle. He's been solid forever. In terms of guard, you've got obviously Quentin Nelson. I know you were wanting to talk about him. He'll just scream you into the ground if you'll believe the fantastic meme that was put up recently. He's certainly the best rookie guard who gained a lot of attention last season. And my most recent favourite is David Bakhtiari of Green Bay Packers. So he's now my favourite human being after watching him chug 2 beers on camera at a baseball game. A basketball game, and just get super hyped before the camera then cut to Aaron Rodgers sort of laughing and shaking his head, saying, "That's my man."
Well, David Bakhtiari was the one that organised for the Green Bay Packers to be on Pitch Perfect 2 as an a cappella group. So, yeah,
so that automatically raises his standing even more.
He's got a history of doing this kind of thing. He's like really good friends with Elizabeth Banks now, so he's appeared in a few different things. That you wouldn't expect an offensive lineman to be in. So, yeah, he's definitely an influence on that team, and he's charged with protecting the franchise, protecting the NFL. In my opinion, I still think Aaron Rodgers is the most exciting player to watch in the league. So he is influential because if he stays on the field, but he does come off a lot. Like if you watched the condensed of Pats versus the Packers a few weeks ago, and within in that game they lost like 2 or 3 linemen for like big third down plays and stuff, and they've got to stay on the field and try. Yeah. But I think it was more that the Pats were rushing everything, so they were doing 2-minute drives, but really fast 2-minute drives, getting like 7 or 8 plays, which was not giving the Packers O-line a chance to rest when they came off. So
yeah,
it's just kind of
being an offensive lineman in the NFL is brutal because you've got to block.
Run up.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You got to run. You're a bigger guy. Your body's not supposed to be built for running, and then you've got to push 300-pound men away from you. You've got to manhandle them. You've got to keep them off of your franchise, whether it's Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, Tom Brady in New England, Will Grier in Carolina. It's a super important position, and it's something which I think the linemen they get more credit these days because people are aware of how important it is. And the analysis is there to show it. But they still need to be recognised, and we need to give them some love. Yeah,
well, one person I had, May storylines, was Travis Frederick. And the influence he would have if he comes back. So he's been training with the Cowboys this week.
That's great news.
And he's been working out with them since mid-April. So if he comes back with Zach Martin and Tyron Smith and whoever they get to fill that extra position, they will be one
good. Of the best offensive lines.
They'll win the division easily, I think, if they've got that offensive line.
You say so? I mean, come on, Philadelphia, I still say are favourites for the division, but that's because I think that they're a more complete team because I trust Carson Wentz more than I trust Dak Prescott.
Yeah, well, I'll get to that in my far too early predictions. But,
yeah, okay. So, spoiler alert.
But I think the influence he has on that team, if he's playing, be ridiculous, and they're not easy things to overcome. Like Darren Fletcher for Man United, and that had been something similar, and it takes a while. But I think if you can sort out this kind of stuff and get into a regimen, you can play. And he's definitely trying to. So
we'll just for the listeners who might not be aware, Travis Frederick is the center for the Dallas Cowboys, I believe.
Yeah.
And he came down with a terrible autoimmune disease like before the start of last season, which not only threatened his season, it threatened his career, it threatened his life. But apparently he's making an amazing comeback, and he's looking like he's going to be back in the NFL this year. Which is fantastic news for a guy who was obviously such an important part of that offensive line, and he will really help shore up that part of the middle. And like, I am of the view that Dak Prescott needs a good offensive line.
Yeah,
I don't think that he could do it without one. And so if Dak Prescott does end up getting this $30 million contract, which we're going to speak about later on, he needs to be giving a lot of that to his offensive line. He needs to buy them cars. He needs to buy them houses, anything. Amazon stock, whatever you can do, give it to them.
Yeah, so Frederick has Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is when the body accidentally attacks your spinal nervous system in response to an illness. So it's pretty much his body's been trying to defend itself against an illness that isn't there.
Yeah.
And you have to there's obviously treatments and that to teach the body to stop doing that. But when he came out, which was, what have we got here, August last year, there was no timetable on him coming back. So the fact that he's even training again in April and May is unbelievable. Because he's only 27 years old. So.
Yeah, 27 years old, great beard. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have someone you want to put forward now, or was Travis Frederick your guy?
It was Travis Frederick, if he plays. Someone that will play, obviously, is Quentin Nelson. The difference he makes in terms of that winning mentality for the Colts is ridiculous. But he's been getting a lot of love recently, so I don't know how much we have to actually go into it. But I think the main thing with the NFL now is because of the changing CBA, collective bargaining agreement, they don't train offensive linemen all the time. They're not allowed to practice. So we're seeing the difference of really good linemen, players that only need to train once a week and can go out and play on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Because they're so valuable now. And Quentin Nelson's one of them. You know, he's coming straight in, doing his two reps a week, and then getting straight in on a Sunday and making a difference. And it's been shown, especially with like players like Eric Flowers and that it doesn't happen every time. You can't always get it right. No, it doesn't happen every time. So he is important, and he's pretty much put the Colts as one of the favourites in the AFC. Obviously, they've done a lot of building, but picking up those two rookies.
Yeah, considering where the Colts were, considering where they were a short time ago, completely luckless for the sake of a pun. They were looking like they were going nowhere, and then all of a sudden, this incredible team is put together by Chris Ballard, and Frank Reich is utilising them in the best way possible. And so much so that I think Chris Wessling of NFL.com had the Colts up as his number 2 offense in the NFL, which I found a little bit high. I guess we will see what happens with them this season. I do have a great affinity for the Colts. I think that they are a very fun team to watch. And I look forward to seeing what they can do this season. Yeah,
definitely. The only other offensive player I really want to add at the moment, well, don't know if we'd consider him an offensive player, but this is really just due to the influence he's going to have on a couple of teams. And that's Robbie Gould.
Okay.
The kicker, I think. That.
Okay. Would you like to explain your work, young man?
So Robbie Gould is currently in the middle of a contract kerfuffle with
that he is.
The 49ers. He is probably the most clutch kicker in the league, and has been for a long time. And he helped 49ers win games last season that they wouldn't have won without him, because they couldn't get the ball in the end zone. And he was hitting them from everywhere. Now, the Bears want Robbie Gould, obviously, after Parkey shitting the bed.
Yeah, well, I think
in
that
the
was a little bit
playoffs.
Unfortunate for Cody Parkey hitting, was it both uprights?
And being deflected.
Yeah, and then going on the Today Show or whatever and talking about it, and then the Bears took in, what was it, 8 kickers to try them out, and then they just said, okay, we want you to take a 43-yard field goal and do what the last guy couldn't. And then of the 8 guys, 2 of them managed to make this single 43-yard field goal. So that kind of backfired on them, perhaps. They know that, like, well, they certainly are seeing the value in a good, consistent kicker. Robbie Gould's got history there.
Oh, his family still lives there,
back.
so he's wanting to go back and wanting to get a contract with the Bears, but San Francisco are wanting him to stay, but he wants more money if he's to stay in San Francisco. So it's getting a bit tense between those camps. But I think that either team that has him, he's going to be quite an influential player for them, for either the 49ers or the Bears this season. So just mainly because of that situation, I just think he's going to have a kind of undue influence.
Yeah. Obviously, we're spending a lot of time on the offensive side of the ball, but since you mentioned the 49ers, I will go as far as to say that George Kittle, did you see what he did last year?
Yeah, I did.
Single-handedly destroying teams, resulting in more yards in a season than Gronk ever amassed. He was catching passes from Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, and your mum for 14 games of the season. So I can see him having a massive impact on the league this year if Jimmy Garoppolo can come back and be what he can be. We might just be in that transition period of goodbye Gronk, hello Georgie.
No.
Yeah,
No.
I think he's gonna be good.
Do you think he's the next Gronk? I don't know. I'd say if we're going to say tight ends, obviously Kelsey has a big influence on games, but obviously as you found out last year that he doesn't actually score many touchdowns.
Yeah.
So it doesn't actually get you many points if you're in a scoring fantasy league. But
yeah, that can happen. It's hard picking up tight ends like that, but yeah. Anyway, moving on. I will
point out some of your wins when they happen.
Thanks, man. Thanks. When they happen, but it's always easier to remember the losses because those are the ones which are more sweet for you. So,
well, I'm part of this fantasy league next season, so there's plenty of opportunity for you to have a go at me.
Yeah. Okay. Oh well, I guess we can break it here first, then, can we? That Darren will be joining the Aberdeen League of Fantasy Football, picking up a franchise this season. So if there's anyone in the league who happens to be listening just now, then please welcome Darren to the stage.
Yay! Woo! Woo!
Woo! Woo! You suck.
So my first big GM decision was to get the fuck of Bobby Pettis.
Dante Pettis, don't you mean?
That's it. Yeah. Well, he's gone.
He gone.
He gone. I gotta get rid of. I can only keep 2 rookies, so he was not staying. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it. So anyone that's listening that's part of that, just introduce yourself on the page and I'll get in touch.
Yeah, cool. And I don't know if I mentioned to you, but we will have to call into a live draft at like
3 a.m.
Something like that on a Sunday. But I'm sure that we can survive that and still get ourselves to work the next morning.
Yes, well,
okay.
my work will be fine with it.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that my work are too. Anyway, we need to press on with what people actually came here for, and that's to talk about the most important non-QBs on defense now. So, obviously, I'll start off. I mean, it's obvious, isn't it?
Is it?
Who the number one is?
Yeah.
Should be.
We'll say
Should be Aaron Donald.
Oh, it's Stephen Gilmore.
Well, he is on my list also.
Yeah,
but
no, you're right. Aaron Donald, definitely.
Yeah. He's just, quite simply, hands down, the greatest interior defensive lineman that we have right now, and possibly that there has ever been.
I just want them to do on TV, like as a pay-per-view. I just want to see Aaron Donald go up against like Geno Atkins and Grady Jarrett and actually see what the difference is. Like how much of a difference he actually is, like athletically, and or if it's just all knowledge of the game. But obviously he's so strong, but the amount of pressures he gets compared to even Fletcher Cox, who's the second on that list.
Yeah, he's also on my list here as someone who's rather unfortunate.
Just ridiculous how much more he gets. So they're going to have to do a sports science or a documentary about Donald, because we need to know how he's doing it.
He's some sort of athletic freak, because he's an interior defensive lineman, but he looks more like a tight end at times. He's too lean, he's too small for a defensive lineman, but he just gets so much power, so much speed, and his technique is the best around at that position, and he just tosses guys out the way.
Well, that was what I was saying.
These are professional football players that he is just manhandling and making look silly on a weekly basis to an extent that no one's ever seen before.
Well, that's what I was saying in the draft coverage, was that I couldn't even believe that Dexter Lawrence and Aaron Donald play the same position, let alone
they're so drastically different.
Play the same sport. It's insane, and his influence on the game. Obviously, these big stats-based companies always say, like, we don't actually know how much that impacts the points and losses, but it does. You can just tell. They have to put like 3 people on him. So whatever that does for the rest of the defensive line.
Yeah. I would like the ability. I don't know if they still have this sort of thing on Sky Sports, but certainly back in the early days of
camera.
Yeah, back in the days of the red button, you used to get the player camera for like the English Premier League and stuff, and I would love to have that and just kind of watch what Aaron Donald does on that defensive line whilst the other action's on the go, and you can see, like, he'll push through, like, slightly to his right. He'll get slightly in behind the quarterback, flushing him out instantly, and that just forces pressure and also forces mistakes to be made if the quarterback can get the ball off, which is rare sometimes. So,
well, I know that scouts and high school teams and some college teams set up a line camera, kind of similar to like a cricket wicket camera, so that even if there isn't like large TV coverage of the game, you can at least see what's happening in the line, so the scouts can see what's going on. So it would be cool if the NFL did bring that kind of back, where you could watch the line. And if that's what you're wanting to see on that game, because you only ever see it when the networks bring it up, and they don't. If they haven't got analyst who looks at the line, you rarely get actual much coverage on what's happened there, especially in the Sunday afternoon and morning games.
Well, we obviously need more of Booger McFarlane's line judging thing. So you need him on his massive chair, getting in the way of people with a TV stuck on the back of it.
Don't need that. Just need a camera looking down the line and some replays.
Yeah, exactly. And finishing off on Aaron Donald, if you haven't had a chance yet, go and search on YouTube for his I think it's his training regime, or his it goes on about how he goes back and he trains in his dad's gym in his basement and stuff, and he just does it relentlessly. He just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. It's a really inspirational to see where he came from to where he is now. Excellent player. It seems like a real good human too. Yep. So who would you like to shove into the mix for the most important non-QB on defense?
Well, we have obviously Khalil Mack, and JJ Watt are in that second tier of pass rushers, and then
which is amazing to see.
Tackle
how can they be in a second tier?
Yeah, and then even they're technically a tier behind Fletcher Cox. So, in terms of actual pressures in the game, so it's so talent heavy, especially when you look at it and you think, like, the one I would really point out and be like, this person can make a big difference in, especially in a division I pay attention to, would be TJ Watt. Because he's been outstanding as well. Kind of going under the radar a bit, being the younger brother, but he had 8 sacks in the first 4 games or something last season. So. Yeah,
at one point it was the Watts 1 and 2 on the sack leaderboard. It was looking pretty good for them at that point.
Yeah, and I think he had a sore arm for a bit during the season, so it wasn't quite as effective in the middle part. But yeah, there's so much going on. But obviously, it's Khalil Mack is the standout, difference maker that people will know.
Absolutely.
But as I say in the stats, Fletcher Cox is actually getting more pressures and having more influence on the game.
Well, I think since we've brought him up a couple of times, Fletcher Cox is so often overshadowed by Aaron Donald. But that's kind of like getting 100% on a test only to find out that someone else got 115%. It's just totally unfair. But he's still a massively disruptive interior player who greatly affects both passing and running games. Khalil Mack, he is more of a pure pass rush threat. He can still do so much, though. And I think to see the value in Khalil Mack, just look at the contrasting change of fortunes of the Raiders and the Bears. It just speaks for itself. Like, through the most of the season, Khalil Mack had more sacks than the entire Raiders defense. And had he been fit for the whole year, he would no doubt have eclipsed their woeful 13 sacks on his own. Like, he's just a completely transformative player who has made something really exciting in Chicago.
Well, it will be interesting to see, because I think most of this season he was on a kind of a snap count, kind of like a pitch count. So if he is fully ready to go and he's actually had a preseason and he's 3 downs, 16 games, the numbers he can put up are just ridiculous.
Yeah, that Chicago Bears defense is going to be really fascinating to see this season, because obviously, having lost Vic Fangio, I do keep coming back to that. But don't rule out just how important Vic Fangio was to that. Like that scheme, that system, it worked so well. So they've got someone else in now to work with that. Will they be able to just go for the same sort of system? They've lost a couple of players like Bryce Callahan there, but you've still got Khalil Mack up front, and you've got like Eddie Jackson playing back at safety, probably the best safety in the league last season. There's still an awful lot going for Chicago, but we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So I think I'll go for a couple of my asterisk players here. Actually, I'll just go for one. So Earl Thomas, when he's fit, nobody does everything better. And him going to Baltimore is going to be a very, very interesting fit. He's a ball hawk. He's a tackling machine. He covers so much ground. He's really smart. He has these instincts which are just off the charts. He takes away such a massive section of that field and forces you to like push the ball either outside the numbers or just swing it out to someone. Just find out where Earl Thomas is and go away from him, because Earl Thomas can be on one side of the pitch and he'll still run someone down on the other side if he has to. He's the best safety in the NFL since Ed Reed, and I don't know if I'd be able to compare them or anything, but I really hope that he comes back from this broken leg that he suffered last season and is just the same as he was before.
I think he'll be fine. I think it was unfortunate, the broken leg, but he hadn't been training, and sometimes that happens. Obviously, some people will say, "Oh, broken leg is just random," but it does have to do with positioning and anticipation and stuff as well.
Yeah,
a lot of players can avoid being rolled up on, especially in the open field, or they're used to coming down a certain way, and if you've not been practicing or training with the team, then you do become more likely to have these like little slips that can lead, especially in a sport like the NFL has, that where you're up and down, you're getting hit as you're coming down. You have to practice that kind of thing. So I think he didn't want to play much last season, but he still wanted to play. He
wanted to play to show them that he was playing angry and that he was still really valuable. He wanted to show them what they were going to be missing. And then when that injury happened, it just backfired so badly. But he's got out and he's got to a really good situation now in Baltimore.
Yeah,
it's not Dallas, where you apparently really wanted to go, but there's only so much that they could do for that.
Yeah, definitely. But he should make an instant impact on the AFC being in that team, and yeah, he's just fun. He's a good player.
Yeah, definitely. Really, really like him here. Okay, so who you got for us?
I'd say part of me is just, as a Homer Brown, I really think that Denzel Ward has the opportunity this season to be unbelievable.
Mm.
But it depends on the scheme that the Browns run. So if he gets to do what he did last season, he's going to have a massive impact on games. Because he was all over it. And, these interceptions he gets are killers. They kill offenses. So I think he's got a chance to step, especially with help on the other side.
Yeah, it's Greedy Williams being picked up in the second round. Yeah, really big.
He's got a chance to make a massive impact on the AFC.
Would you put him down as being more important than Myles Garrett then?
I would say so. Myles Garrett still needs to really get those plays, like really influence and get the turnovers, because most of the turnovers from the Browns are coming from making great tackles in the open field. But with the boy from the Giants, Vernon, coming through
Olivier Vernon,
as well,
yeah,
then Myles Garrett might have more of an opportunity now to get some one-on-ones and get to the quarterback.
Yeah, like weighing up the importance of really good defensive back coverage versus the importance of a good pass rush is very difficult to do because they are both very important. But if you're so good at one that it affects how the ball comes out. So say, for example, if you are that great at pass rush that the quarterback just doesn't have time to think and has to get rid of the ball within less than 2 seconds, then that makes the defensive backs look great. But if the defensive backs can just cover players out of the game and like force the quarterback to keep having to look, and like it's like but the pass rush isn't getting there, and he's had the ball in his hands for 5 seconds. It's he's got to throw the ball eventually. It's really, really hard to quantify.
The thing with the defense is that there's really three different areas of defense, and they all do such different things.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same because it's the same mission, but it's so different.
There's different factors involved.
Yeah, so you want everything to work together, because you can have a great pass rush, but if you're downfield, if you're open field, your safeties that aren't picking up their players properly, then on the blitz, a quarterback can just pick out his down option and they can run for 10 yards.
Yeah, well, it'll depend on
the other way can go.
Yeah,
is that you can have a great coverage, but if your quarterback's got 10 seconds to throw the ball, he's going to find someone.
Yeah, sometimes depends on the quality of the quarterback himself, I would say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so since you went for a defensive back there, I'll come back to a pass rusher. And so in reading through a whole bunch of articles trying to decide on who to put on this list, I came across a Reddit article, which people had naming their choice for the best non-QB on a team. I was like, hey, you stole our idea. Obviously, it was definitely us. It's an original thought that we had. But anyway, a whole bunch of people put in answers for other players, and they always had someone else chiming in, having a laugh or saying, oh, they're garbage, or what about this guy, or oh, he's not that great. But when it came to Denver, someone said Von Miller, and there was no arguments. It was just silence. Von Miller can silence the internet. He is just one of these guys in the same boat as Khalil Mack, but he bends round his blocker better than anyone else. He just gets so low to the ground, and he can turn a corner so fast with his speed, quickness, and he has all his technique, and he uses his leverage so well to get the quarterback, which allows Denver's defensive backs to have a much easier time of it. Whether Von's actually sacking the quarterback, whether he's flushing him out the pocket, he is a very, very disruptive player.
Yeah, and it helps that you've also got Bryce Callahan now.
Yes.
So he was very high on the PFF ratings. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
you should, with Vic Fangio, you should have quite a good team next year.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm a little bit concerned about this Chris Harris Jr. situation there, with his contract dispute. I guess you say it would be a dispute. Yeah. Obviously, I think he does deserve a bit of a raise, but it's not how football works.
It's not how NFL teams work.
No. So I certainly wouldn't like to move on from him just yet. I think we've got a couple more years out of him. Going back to Von Miller, he is one of these guys. He's going to get his own tackles. He's going to get his own sacks. but then he's also going to flush quarterbacks out into the arms of like Bradley Chubb. You've got obviously your defensive backs are going to have more opportunities to play on the ball because they're going to be thrown more poorly. It's one of these guys. I think that there is often one of these things. If you have a transformative player on a team, he should make everyone else around him better. All of their stats should inflate, and Von Miller is that guy in Denver's team.
Yeah,
I would say
no argument. He's an awesome player, and he pretty much won a Super Bowl on his own.
Yeah, go back and watch that, guys. Honestly, look at his highlights of the Super Bowl win against Carolina. It's just a defensive player taking over the biggest game of the year. Incredible. Anyway, you got anyone you want to move on to?
Well, I'd like to have a quick discussion or get your opinion on this player, because there was a lot of debate around his new contract and Anthony Barr, and then in part his middle of the field partner Harrison Smith, and if you feel that they didn't have a good season last year, in part thanks to what the Vikings were saying about them being game planned for, and influencing the game because of the game plan rather than what they actually did, and if that's just nonsense to keep them around and be able to give them maybe a little bit more money than the ownership want to keep the team together, because I couldn't quite tell. I didn't watch enough of the Vikings to really notice that, but obviously their coach is on their side. And I'm just a bit like, are they actually as good as they might have been the season before?
I don't know. Well, I think that Anthony Barr he's an interesting player, but he's not like an every down player these days. He is like he's one of these guys. He's a pretty freakish athlete for a linebacker, and he's in an all right linebacking core. The strength of that defense should be on the line and in the defensive backs. It's like you previously mentioned Harrison Smith. I think he's a fantastic free safety, a real missile out the back there. You got Trey Waynes playing left corner, and Xavier Rhodes has been excellent as well. But Anthony Barr, I actually thought that he was going to be allowed to walk. I thought that he was one of these guys who just wasn't going to be, like, he was going to be the odd man out, because there's a bunch of guys on that line that they all need to pay, and they're going to need to pay their cornerbacks soon as well, and I just see more value there, whereas Barr, he's not been like stellar. Like, he had that one interesting year, I think it was his rookie campaign, where he really put up very good numbers. He got a whole bunch of sacks, he had interceptions, he had forced fumbles, he had fumble recoveries, but he's not been quite the same since then. He is very quick, he's pretty big, but yeah, I just feel that you could get more out of it. I don't think that he's worth how much they paid for him, and it's probably going to come back and bite them when they have to let someone else walk.
Yeah, part of me that's why I was a bit confused about it, and if he actually was worth the money he didn't pay, because it's not a bad contract he got, but it's also he's best friends with Harrison Smith, and it just seems like the Vikings wanted to keep both of them together, but I just don't know how influential that tandem is in comparison to other players in the league. I wasn't sure. Like, you're looking at the major acquisitions in the offseason and the big plays that teams have made, and Anthony Barr was definitely either going to be one of them for the Vikings or the Jets.
Yeah, he was given big money, but yeah, I don't see him being...
And then when you actually look at it, it doesn't look like it doesn't look like he's now getting paid to be a part of this conversation, but he's not, if you know what I mean. It's strange.
Yeah, no, he's been given this good money, but it's the sort of money that some of the guys that we've already mentioned on this list are getting, and he doesn't deserve that, to be fair. With all due respect to Anthony Barr, and like maybe he just fits into this system really well that their new defensive coordinator George Edwards is going to be running. Who knows? Only know what's going to happen here. Maybe he's going to have a much bigger part to play in this team next season.
Hopefully, because they're paying him to be.
Yeah, so. He better be. Anyway, I'm just going to finish up real quick with another defensive back, and he's someone who I think has been slept on quite a bit recently, and that is Patrick Peterson on the Arizona Cardinals. So he allowed about 30 completions last season and an average of, I think it was about 0.68 yards per coverage snap. He is shut down. He's dynamic. He can return kicks if you want him to as well. He can take away players. He can take away the likes of a Julio Jones at times. He can try his best to take away the likes of a DeAndre Hopkins as well. Now that you've got Byron Murphy on the other side of him, that's really going to influence how that Cardinals defense works going forward. And I just think that Patrick Peterson is the biggest, most important part of that defense at the moment.
Yeah, Hui is the star, and they need their stars to play well, and stars need help as well.
Yeah.
So
hopefully, for the sake of the Cardinals, he will want to stay, because there was some talk of trading him, and that's the last thing that they need, because I do see the Cardinals as going somewhere. The talk of the Arizona Cardinals will lead us nicely into our next podcast, which we're going to do on way too early predictions, because we have overran incredibly. So, we'll break that one down. So before we go, do we have any honourable mentions that we want to get out there for our most important non-quarterbacks in the NFL,
Darren? Well, on the offensive side, obviously, there's Julian Edelman from a percentage side of things and what he actually does for his team.
Yeah.
But we haven't. The defense, we need to give a bit more love to. Like, you've got, Daniel Hunter at the Vikings. You've got Dee Ford. There's Bobby Wagner.
Yes, absolutely.
Cameron Jordan, Luke Kuechly. So there are lots of players that are going to make an impact next season. But obviously, we can't talk about them all.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, maybe we can just do a podcast every day until the season starts, and we'll do that on each individual who deserves some accolades as being one of the best in the league. We probably don't have time for that.
No.
So, yeah, those guys all deserve a lot of love. Of course, on offensive side of the ball, there is still a very dark cloud looming over the NFL just now with the Tyreek Hill saga. He would absolutely be on this list had his status been a bit more clear in a positive manner, but unfortunately it's really not looking that way at the moment, so we can't put him on this list, unfortunately.
Yeah, and definitely on the other side that you can say that Mecole Hardman is going to be an influential player next season, because he's going to have to, as a rookie, pretty much step in and do what Tyreek Hill did last season.
He could well be. So I reckon that's probably a podcast all on its own, which offenses we think are going to trend the right way and which ones are going to be stepping back. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, we'll deal with that some other week. Anyway, so that'll do it for just now. Please join us next time, where we will get into our way too early predictions, and we'll talk about a little bit more stuff that's happening around the league. So that'll do it for now, and please join us next time. Say bye, Darren.
See you later.
Bye.
Yeah!